Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I'm gonna be talking about something that has been on everyone's sort of minds and everything. Obviously, with following the attempts on Trump's life, I think this is something that people have started obviously realizing. But it's not just because Trump is factually gonna win the election. Because he has a photo where he pretty much is pumping his fist up in the air, but how to put this, I don't think the Democrats have any intentions of saving the trans population, to put it very mildly. So regardless of the outcome, I do feel like right now specifically, if you haven't had this conversation already and if you're in the US, or in general, I'd say if you're in some part of the world which has very strict how to put this, outcomes which are very unfavorable for trans people, you should really start having a conversation with yourself. What should you do? Where should you move? What is possible? What is impossible? And what can you do before it's too late, actually? So I'm not one to raise panic, but things are looking pretty grim. And it's not just because of Project 2025, because I was watching a video from the Governor, I'm sure I'm butchering the name, but he does have a very fair point. Just having Democrats say you have to vote for us because there's Project 2025, which is essentially what Trump would do anyway, isn't just a reason to vote them into power. And I think any serious leftist also knows that the Democrats don't have anything that they're gonna do which is gonna be different. They're not gonna stop anything. And for instance, Biden said, if you will vote for me, I'll get Roe versus Wade into an actual law within the first 3 months. And people are like, well, you have 3 months now, what's stopping you? So, and obviously his support for Israel has been very controversial, to put it mildly, and not very favorable. But in general, he hasn't done anything. Things have gone for the worse. Things will continue going for the worse regardless of who wins. There isn't any good outcome, factually. Now, I do want to say, I'm not saying sort of move from the US, panic, grab everyone, run, but start thinking about your state laws, where you're at. Also can depend on the city you're in. Also, I do want to say that obviously there are blue states which will forever be actually left-leaning rather than the politicians. Like there's Illinois and there's Illinois, then there's the entire East Coast, there's Minnesota, which have been very sort of rigid in actually helping the trans population and putting trans laws in place so that they would not be taken away in the circumstance of idiots being in the White House, which is the case of Democrats or Republicans. And I don't think you should be yelling at people like, hey, you need to go and vote for Biden right now, this is more important. Biden's not gonna solve anything. Obviously, neither will Trump, neither will a gun help you, factually. So I do want to say that it is obviously very serious. And I'm also saying this from a perspective from someone who had to move due to, well, my birth country being unsafe. and I have moved throughout my life, and I just don't believe we need to be left in harm's way. And I do understand that moving is very, very difficult, and I want to emphasize this, that do not think that just because you're American or you're white or you're European, and or if you have certain, I don't know, passports or whatever, that the move will be easier. Just like for the UK people, it can still be a difficult move to do and everything. So I really want to emphasize that you need to research, you need to do your research, your work, you need to think where it makes sense. I do want to say that it's very important to emphasize on your search to be very broad as well. Again, I'm saying if you're in the US, for instance, and you're in a neighboring to one of the good blue states, and again, I'm not gonna say like which states are good or not. I'm just saying from my knowledge and my experience from moving abroad. And also, obviously, if you're moving abroad to another country, you have to, well, you're essentially moving to another country. You need to learn languages, you need to understand that you'll be working, and English will not get you, well, unless it's an English country, obviously, English-speaking country, will not get you all the protection you need. You will need to integrate, you will need to, well, be part of society eventually. And it is very difficult to do it. I understand that it's also a very expensive thing, but at the same time, right now, we're talking about our own lives. Trans rights are at stake, trans people are targeted, and it's not a video I was even thinking to do, to be honest, but I do feel like it should be advised to sort of sit down and think, what do you want from life? What is safe in your life to do? So obviously, of course, if you're in a safe place and you assess it, it's also a good idea to do it. For instance, if you think that, oh, Trump is gonna go in and Project 2025 is gonna happen, I'm fucked, but you're in a very left-leaning state, blue state, if you want to call it, where the laws will affect, or not to the extent, then obviously you don't have anything to fear. So obviously moving out, let's say, out of Minnesota to some place else, I don't know, like, let's say to Europe, just because you're scared of Trump instead of understanding the laws of your own state, isn't smart. I mean, you can move, of course, but you need to understand that you're not at risk as someone, let's say, in Texas. And I want to say that obviously reproductive issues is also a very serious thing, specifically with Roe versus Wade. Also, there was a few discussions on Reddit as well that I saw about reproductive, sort of people not understanding that T doesn't really mean that you can be infertile from the get-go. Obviously, your chances of getting pregnant are lower, but they're not zero. It is not a contraceptive, so please do not think that. There are cases of trans men which have even, I know a famous, well, not a famous, I know a case where the guy wasn't, he's something like from 8 to 12 years and he got pregnant. And obviously there are cases of people with 4 years, less, more years. So please use protection at any given time it can happen, and specifically in this bad situation in the world, it's very important. I also wanted to say that I understand that we're living in a very, very critical moment in history. There's a lot of wars, there's a lot of everything going on, but try to be mindful of who you vote for. So, for instance, if you vote for Biden, you're still voting for Israel to pretty much keep bombing Palestine. If you're voting for, well, if you voted for Labour, you pretty much ignored also like your trans peers. Or if you're voting Conservative, you were fucking everyone over in the UK. And, or for instance, if you're, like, I have had a lot of discussion with people which are like, oh, but J.K. Rowling doesn't have the influence she has. Or there was a very good conversation on Blue Sky about the New York Times and the fact that it does not reach cis people when it is being quoted by people who do legislations in certain states, like, I'm trying to remember the exact states. It was Idaho, Alabama, Texas, I think. Can't remember the third one. And basically, so when any anti-trans bullshit happens, don't think that it's not going to affect trans people. We're in an era where, I'm sorry, if a cis woman can just write trans people, I don't know, are the devil, people are actually going to believe that, okay? So please be mindful of J.K. Rowling actually doing harm to trans people. So I actually do not want any interest, I have no interest in people who support Harry Potter in any way. That is directly supporting her. That's it, finish. You can't, if you are sympathetic, if you are nostalgic about Harry Potter, if you're continuing and giving her money or discussing her stuff in a positive light instead of bringing awareness to her bigotry, I'm not interested, to put it very mildly. And your nostalgia and you're choosing your own nostalgia over the lives of trans people. Also, when it comes to voting for Biden, you need to think about the Israel-Palestine war, conflict, whatever you want to call it. It's obvious that Palestinians are being killed. I'm sorry, I don't know how much obvious it has to be. And also Biden obviously supports the Ukrainian side, but the Russia-Ukrainian war is a bit more nuanced because both sides are negative and both sides are completely unhinged. So supporting either side is really bad. So obviously think of that as well. So now when you vote, sometimes it's better to, I think, abstain, think about the things to do, or if you're voting, vote consciously, knowing that you're voting and you will be changing lives because that vote goes significantly into something. So yeah, this is what I want to talk about. So baseline is, please research where you're at, know your state laws. This video is specifically made for Americans, factually. And for other people who think of moving elsewhere, and there are many threads, there are many people online which know specifically better situations about the countries they live in. So obviously I have helped people with Portugal. I know some sort of knowledge about Spain, but I would still recommend you, if you're looking at Spain for instance, to look specifically at people who live in Spain rather than approaching me about it. Also, if you're European, also think about it. If you have a EU passport, it's very, very important to have one, and it's very critical in this time. And if you're in Latin America, well, just look as well. Also, I wanted to say, if you're in Latin America, like for instance Brazil, I think you should be fine right now. Well, fine is a stretch, you still have crime and everything. But for instance, like the previous governments with Bolsonaro had a very transphobic lady which was doing a lot of damage. So obviously you still need to know, if you're voting for a certain government, who's doing the laws, who's doing the protections, and who's in the Ministry of Health. So it's very complicated right now. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry for the depressive video. I guess I figured it's best to do this instead of ignoring it, and it's really better to sometimes sit down and think about life, whether life is going to continue the way you're predicting or not, and what you should do about it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I'm sorry if you think that I'm sort of adding heat to the discussion, but I do want people to be safe, and I'm just saying that I'm not saying this just because I 100% think that Trump is going to win. But it's not because of the fact that Trump is going to win. Let's say the Democrats still manage to do it. You're still under danger, and you should still really, really heavily consider in which state you are, how safe it is, what can you do. Also, if you're disabled, also please think of certain accessibility. If there are any laws, there can be something I'm missing as well. So obviously you can know much better about your situation than I ever will. And obviously, if you are in a location which is safe, like hypothetically you can have a very safe city in a not so safe state, then obviously you know better than I do, so this video completely can be ignored, you know? So yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you think that someone is, well, anyway, feel free to share this. I always appreciate all the shares, I appreciate all the love. I very appreciate comments, discussion, and people sharing my video around to open the convos, an icebreaker. Like I sometimes say, like to punch a friend in the face, but in this case it's to be concerned for your friend after punching them. So thank you very much for watching. Yeah, very much please subscribe. Thank you.